prince was lying flat on the ground when he noticed something strange. His brother had a long tail trailing behind him, and peeking out from under his stepmother's skirt, the exact same thing. He wanted to run and tell his father, but the king was already completely under the queen's thumb. The prince knew better. If her secret got out, there'd be hell to pay for him. Sure enough, the queen drew a long breath and exhaled a cloud of green mist. It wrapped around the prince, and he began to shrink, too small even to hold the little wooden sword in his hand. When the mist cleared, the prince had become a nutcracker. His brother gave him a kick and sent him flying out the window. From that day on, the kingdom fell under the control of the mice, and the little nutcracker drifted away downstream, carried off by the current. Years later, a pawnshop owner named Ritter came into possession of the nutcracker. He had his eye on Mary, a girl who loved to dance, and tried everything to win her over. Mary wanted nothing to do with him. Undeterred, Ritter dug up a massive debt her late father had left behind and used it to pressure her into marrying him. On his way out, he pressed the nutcracker into her hands, called it a token of his affection, and told her to give him an answer soon. Mary went to her room and threw the nutcracker aside in frustration. She stared at a family photo, thinking one thing: how she wished she could go back to being a little girl, playing with her old toys, without a care in the world. As it turned out, that wish came true. A shooting star streaked across the sky and wrapped her in a golden light. When she opened her eyes, she had shrunk to the size of a thumb. She ran to the front door in a panic, screaming for her mother. Her mother heard what she thought was a mouse and figured she'd better get a cat. Being small did mean she didn't have to marry Ritter anymore. But the dangers were everywhere and endless. A thumbtack, a powder compact, any one of them could kill her. She barely dodged the point of a pin before the compact toppled over, and the cloud of powder swallowed her whole. Out of the haze, a massive rat appeared, teeth bared, eyes full of menace. Mary backed away on shaking legs. She grabbed a nearby tack and tried to fight back. The rat snatched it right out of her hands. Then the prince came charging in, sword raised. He didn't flinch at the rat for a second, but the thing was enormous. It swatted him across the room and knocked his sword away. The rat turned and lunged at Mary, jaws wide open. The prince grabbed its tail with both hands and held on, just barely slowing it down. Enraged, the rat flung him to the ground and pinned him under one claw, ready to finish him off. Then a sheep came barreling in from out of nowhere and headbutted the rat into the air. The rat scrambled up to retaliate and took several fireballs to the face. Santa Claus was hurling magic ornaments. The rat had had enough. It tucked its tail and bolted into a hole in the wall. Mary stared at the toys bouncing around her, completely bewildered. Santa explained it was Christmas Eve, and her wish had brought them all to life. Mary looked at her old childhood companions, overjoyed and heartbroken at the same time. She had absolutely no interest in spending the rest of her life this small. Santa told her not to worry. The magic wouldn't last. When the Christmas sun rose, everything would go back to normal. She let out a long breath of relief. The prince went over to thank the sheep. Mary thanked the prince. He shook his head and said he hadn't rescued anyone. He just really hated mice, though he couldn't explain why. He had no memory of his past, only that deep, bone-level hatred of rats, etched into him, impossible to shake. When he spotted the mouse hole, something pulled him toward it before he even thought about it. Santa's expression darkened. To break the curse, everyone in the house had to stay put. Mary didn't hesitate. She was the first one into the hole. The sheep and the turkey rushed in after her, faster than she was, and tumbled into another world ahead of her. Mary followed and crashed straight into the prince's arms. Once she found her footing, Mary grabbed the prince and said they needed to go back. The prince said he wasn't a toy. He didn't think of himself as a nutcracker either. Before he could finish, the ground started to shake. A carriage came racing in from the distance. A hand reached out from inside and told the driver to stop. Out stepped a woman with a tail. She wrinkled her nose, said she could smell humans and that it bothered her. The soldiers drew their swords and began to search. The big, cowardly chicken panicked and bolted. The soldiers gave chase. As they ran through a narrow crack in the wall, they transformed back into mice. The freshly changed mice spotted the turkey cowering with its head tucked down, smirked, plucked out a feather as a trophy, and walked away. The sheep and Mary caught up and tried to comfort it, until the turkey slowly pulled its head out of the dirt. It had seen enough of this place. It just wanted to go home. Meanwhile, the prince was looking at the landscape around him, and it felt strangely familiar. Standing before a waterfall, he caught sight of a palace, and the memories came flooding back all at once. This had been his kingdom. After his mother died, his father had remarried, and because he had stumbled upon the queen's secret, that tale, she had cursed him and turned him into a nutcracker. Mary listened, and something tightened in her chest. She made up her mind on the spot. She was going to help the prince take down the Mouse Queen. But the castle was surrounded by guards on all sides. There was no obvious way in. Fortunately, the prince remembered a secret passage that led straight into the royal tomb inside the castle. Inside the tomb, ghosts came rushing toward them. Luckily, the prince was recognized. They were his ancestors. When they heard what had happened to him, they told him to break the curse, he needed a magic flute, one with the power to stop the mice. But only the king knew where it was hidden. The group slipped out of the passage and made their way into the castle. Guards were close by. They had no choice but to hide inside the containers of kitchen ingredients. Right on cue, the head chef ordered the soldiers to haul the supplies inside. The prince and his companions were slowly, unknowingly becoming tonight's dinner.